Hello and welcome. In this video tutorial, I'm going to update the Pacific Trails Resort website using the existing Pacific Trails website files from Chapter 4 as my starting point to create a new version of the website that incorporates images. To begin this assignment, you will go to the course shell, and in the Chapter 5 assignment instructions, you will download the Images zip folder. It will include all of the images necessary to complete this assignment. The Images folder is in my Downloads folder. I'm going to drag that to my desktop. I'm going to right-click on this, and I'm going to say Extract All, and extract it to my desktop, and say Extract. I'm going to throw out the zipped folder. I'm going to go to my CIS 152 folder that is on my desktop. I'm going to right-click on Chapter 4, and I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to paste. I'm going to rename this folder Chapter 5 and select Enter. And I'm going to double-click on this folder, and I'm going to rename the CH4 Pacific. I'm going to rename that, and I'm going to rename that CH5 Pacific. Inside of that CH5 Pacific folder, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to move my images folder into that. I'm going to go ahead and close this folder, and I'm going to open up my code editor. And you will see that I have a Chapter 5 folder in there. Inside of that is a CH5 Pacific with an images folder. To avoid linking problems in future chapters, you'll want to move your images folder into the CH5 Pacific folder. This way, when you copy this folder for the next assignment and rename it, you will not have to update the links in your CSS style sheet file. If for some reason you do not see your file tree like this, you can select the refresh button and refresh your file tree. I'm going to begin by updating the Pacific.css file with new CSS styles. I'm going to click on that file and open it. I'm going to start with the directions that are in the book. In my body element, I'm going to add a new declaration that configures Arial, Helvetica, and sans serif as my font typeface. After this last style, I'm going to go ahead and hit the Enter key. And I'm going to go ahead and type FFA tab. And that is the Emmet shortcut for font family. The A will add the fonts Arial, Helvetica New, Helvetica, and sans serif. Take notice that when two words make up the font name, it is wrapped in double quotation marks. I'm going to go to the end of this semicolon, and I'm going to add in my comment so that I can remember how I created that Emmet abbreviation. It was FFA, and I'll close that comment. I'm going to go to the last declaration in my header element, and I'm going to display a background image named Sunset that will appear on the right-hand side without any repeat to it. I'm also going to configure a declaration to set 400% as my line height and 1em as my text indent. I'm going to type the Emmet abbreviation. I'm going to type the characters BGI for background image, and I'm going to hit the Tab key. Inside of the URL parenthesis, I'm going to type images because this is the folder that is where my sunset image resides. So it comes up as images. I'm just going to select Enter to add that images folder in there, and notice it has the /. All right, so I know what the problem is, and I'm going to have to go back and correct this. Right here where it has images, that is incorrect. I'm going to go back out to CIS 152. I'm going to open up my Chapter 5, CH5, and when I downloaded the images folder from Canvas, it nested the images inside another images folder. So the images is inside of the images folder, and I don't want that. So I'm just going to drag that onto my CH5, And then if I click the CH5, there's my images folder. Okay, perfect. And now I'm going to go back into my code editor and notice it's no longer nested. So I'm going to save this, Control S, and I'd like to test this to make sure that this path that I've typed is correct. So I'm going to open up my index.html file, and you know I already have my style sheet connected, and you can see that on line 8. You cannot test your CSS style sheet as this file is only a supporting file for your HTML pages. I'm going to go ahead and select Live Server, so I'm going to right-click and say Open with Live Server to preview my page. Okay, I have this open in my browser, and I can see that I have an image, but I have multiple sunset images across the top. This is not what I wanted. I do not want this image to repeat in the header element. That's okay though, because I'm going to correct that with the additional styles. If your image does not appear in the header element, make sure that you check that your images folder is inside of your CH5 Pacific folder. I'm going to return to my code editor. I'm going to go back to my Pacific.css file, and I'm going to make sure that I type in this comment / BGI, so I remember that for the next time. On the next line, I'm going to add a background position. The Emmet abbreviation for this is BGDP. I'm going to hit the tab key, and I'm going to add right. And this will put the image on the right side of the header element. So I'm going to go after this, add my comment. I do not want the sunset image to repeat. My next Emmet abbreviation is BGR, which is background repeat, and I'm going to hit tab. And the default value, no repeat, was added. And I'm going to go ahead and add my comment, BGR, and close my comment. I'm going to save my file, Control S. I'm going to go back to my browser and review my index.html file. And now you can see that my image is in the far right corner. Let's review the CSS common errors that can cause the browser not to apply CSS styles correctly to a web page. Verify that you are using a colon and semicolon in the right spots. They are easy to confuse. The colon symbol should separate the properties from their values. The semicolon terminates this declaration. Check that you're not using equal signs instead of colons between each property and its value. Verify that you have an opening curly brace and a closing curly brace around the styled rules for each selector. Check the syntax of your selectors, their properties and property values for correct usage. So make sure that you have the words spelled correctly. Syntax refers to a concept in writing code dealing with a very specific set of words in a very specific order to those words when we give the computer instructions. Make sure that all of these words are spelled correctly and these properties and values are also correct. Use the W3C's CSS validator to help you find syntax errors. For demonstration purposes, I'm going to create some syntax errors in my Pacific.css style sheet. This is for demonstration purposes only, and I do not want you to copy these mistakes. So I'm going to go ahead and where it says background color, I'm going to remove the letter N. Now it's giving me a warning in my code editor that there's a misspelling with this squiggly line. I'm going to remove that semicolon, and once again I'm getting this squiggly line. I'm going to save my file, and I'm going to go out to my browser. I'm going to open up a new window, and I'm going to type in jigsaw w3org CSS validator. I'm going to select by file upload, browse, go to my desktop, find my CIS 152 folder, Chapter 5, CH5 Pacific, the Pacific.css file, and open, and check. It's telling me that on line 14 that the property background color does not exist. It tells me that the closest matching property name is background color. So it's showing me that I have a problem here with this property. On line 17, in my H1 element, it's telling me that margin bottom, there's a parser error. That parser error is a syntax error telling me that I must be missing something between the margin bottom and this value, 0. So let me go ahead and fix those mistakes. So background color, I will correct that and add the N back in, and then my semicolon. And I'm going to save this file, Control S. I'll go back out to my validator. I'll select the back button. I'll go ahead and browse, which is already there, and I'll say check. And this time, no errors were found. Now it's going to take practice to learn how to read the errors in your CSS validator. I'm going to add some additional styles to my header element, and I'm going to go ahead and go to the next line, and the Emmet abbreviation for line height is LH. I'm going to go ahead and type the value, which is 400, and I must add in that percent sign. And I'm going to select tab. I'll go ahead and type a comment, and that was LH 400%, and I'll close that comment. The Emmet abbreviation for text indent is TXI tab 1M. I'm going to go outside of that semicolon, and I'm going to add my comment. The rules that we just created will only affect the header element selector. I'm going to go ahead and save this, Control S, and I'm going to go to my browser. Now, notice this header color that was chosen does not match this sunset image over here. Now notice I've got this nifty tool up here, and it's called ColorZilla. And this is an extension that I've added on to my browser. So if you will go to Tools and go to Extensions and Themes, and if you type in ColorZilla, you can go ahead and add this. You can also add this in Chrome, Brave, Edge, whatever browser that you're using. So let me show you the reason why I like this tool. I'm going to select this tool, and then I'm going to come over here, okay, and I'm going to put my cursor right in there, and it copies the hexadecimal code that I need. I'm going to go back in my code editor, and I'm going to just highlight where it says background color, and I'm going to paste over top of that. Save, Control S. I'll go back out to my browser, and notice that's a much better look than the color that they had chosen for us. All right, so let me continue on. On my nav element, I would like to add a font weight of bold. So after this closing comment here, I'm going to select the Enter key, and I'm going to type the Emmet abbreviation, the characters FWB, and then tab. And that completes the entire declaration for the font weight bold. So I'll go ahead and add my comment, FWB. And I need to add in a nav A element selector to eliminate the display of the underline for the hyperlink in the navigation menu. So let me just save this, Control S. And we want to get rid of this right here, this underline. In order to get rid of that, we're going to create a new nav element selector, and it's going to be after the nav, and it's going to be nav A. I need my curly braces in there. I'm going to hit Enter. And the Emmet abbreviation for text decoration is TXD. I'm going to select tab, and then I'm just going to type none, and it comes up, and I'm going to select Enter. So text decoration none. So I'm going to type in my comment, txd, that will remove the underline for those hyperlinks. And I'm going to save my file, Control S. The instructions say for the H1 element selector that we are going to add a declaration to display text with the fonts Georgia, Times New Roman, or serif font typeface. But since this is going to be a repeating style for the H1, the H2, and the H3 element selectors, we want to create one rule for all three of the element selectors. There is an acronym called DRY, and it means do not repeat yourself. We do not want to write a font family rule for just the H1 selector when the same rule is going to be the exact same for the H2 and the H3 element selectors. We're going to create just one rule and use a comma to separate the element selectors H1, H2, and H3. We are going to use the DRY principle. Do not repeat yourself. So after this H1 element, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type H1, H2, H3, and the curly braces. And I'm going to use the Emmet abbreviation for font family that will include Georgia and Times New Roman. So it's going to be FFT and then tab. Remember, when two or more words make up the font name, it is wrapped in double quotation marks. A web browser displays text with the fonts that have been installed on the user's computer. The browser will attempt to use the fonts in the order listed. So we would like to have Georgia be our first font. We would go ahead and cut Georgia, Control X, with that comma, and add it to the first spot on our font family. The browser will attempt to use the fonts in the order listed. The following CSS configures the H1, H2, H3 element selectors to display text in Georgia if installed, or Times New Roman, or the default installed serif font. I'm going to save this file, Control S, and I'm going to go out to my browser and notice that the H1 and the H2 tags were just both updated. After my H2 element selector, I'm going to add in an H3 element selector and configure the text color. The Emmet abbreviation for text color is the letter C with the pound symbol 003 and tab. Remember, because the hex color first two digits are the same, I can abbreviate this hex color value to 3 digits. I'm going to go ahead and add in my comment here, which was C pound 003, and close that comment. Instead of using the list marker bullet for the UL element selector, I'm going to show you another way that we can add in a graphic for your unordered list. So I'm going to go out to my browser, and I'm going to open up a new tab, and I'm going to type in Font Awesome, and I'm going to select this first link. Font Awesome are vector icons that you can use for your website. Get vector icons and special logos on your website with Font Awesome, the web's most popular icon set and toolkit. Notice the version that I am using. Your version may vary. Font Awesome software updates often, so the directions may change after this video recording. In the index.html file, we have an unordered list that we will enhance with Font Awesome icons. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go out to a browser, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open a new tab, and then I'm going to search for CDN Font Awesome. I'm going to select Enter, and where it says Font Awesome Libraries, I'm going to select this. I'm going to choose the latest version listed at the top, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to copy the link tag. I'm going to go back to Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to go underneath the Pacific.css style sheet, and I'm going to paste. And I'm going to go ahead and save. Using a CDN or content delivery network link for external libraries like Font Awesome offers several advantages. It's faster loading, it reduces server load, and its cache efficiency. I'm going to go back out to my browser, and I'm going to go back to Font Awesome, and where it says Docs, I'm going to select this, and up here I'm going to type icons in a list, and I'm going to go ahead and select this. Over here on the left-hand side, under Styling Icons on the Web, you will see Icons in a List. I'm going to scroll down, and where it says Use FA-UL and FA-LI to replace default bullets in an unordered list, I'm going to hover over this code block right here, where I get this icon in the top right corner, and I'm going to click this icon to copy to the clipboard. I'm going to go back into Visual Studio Code. I'm going to scroll down to where it has my unordered list. And before that, I'm just going to give myself some space, and I'm just going to paste that in there. And I'm using this just as a template. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to highlight where it says unwind in the heated pool. I'm going to highlight that and then do Control X. And where it says list icons, I'm going to go ahead and highlight that, and then I'm just going to paste over top of it. I'm going to do the next one. I'm going to do explore the coast on your own. I'm going to cut that, and I'm going to go to the next line, and where it says be used to, I'm going to highlight that and paste over it. I'm going to go to this next list item. I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to do Control X, and where it says replace bullets, I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to copy over that. And then where it says savor nightly fine dining, I'm going to highlight that and cut it. And where it says in list, I'm going to paste. Then I'm going to remove this unordered list that is now empty, and I'm just going to delete that. And I'm going to save this. And I'm going to view this in my browser. And now you can see that I have these icons that I copied from Font Awesome. These are not the icons that I like to use. I'm going to use something else. So I'm going to go ahead and update this by going back to the documentation. I'll start by returning to the Font Awesome website and selecting the icons link. In the search bar, I'll type pool, and I'll select enter. And I have a few options here. Since I'm not using the Pro version, I'll avoid the Pro icons and select person swimming icon instead. On the right-hand side, the HTML tab will be highlighted, showing the I tag code snippet. I'll copy this snippet and return to Visual Studio Code. I'm going to select the first list item that has unwind in the heated outdoor pool and whirlpool. I'm going to select this I tag, and I'm going to highlight it. And then I'm just going to select Control V, which is paste. I'll paste the new icon over top of it. Next, I'll go back to Font Awesome again, and I'll close the current selection. And this time I'm going to search for hiking. I'll select the person hiking icon, and I'll copy the code snippet. I'll return to Visual Studio Code, and I'll highlight over the second I tag. And then I'll select Control V, which is paste, and I'll save that. I'll return to Font Awesome. I'll close this hiking icon, and this time I'm going to search for martini. I'll select the martini glass icon. I'll copy the code snippet. I'll go to the third list item. I'll highlight the I tag, and then I'll paste over top of it. I'll save my work. I'll return to Font Awesome. I'll close this, and then I'll search for dining. I'll select the utensils. I'll copy the code snippet. I'll return to Visual Studio Code. I'll select the last I tag and I'll highlight it and I'll paste over top of it and I'll save this. The CDN Content Delivery Network link is crucial for loading the Font Awesome file into our web page. This file contains all necessary styles and rules for displaying the icons. The FA-UL class adds necessary padding and positioning to the unordered list to accommodate icons next to each list item. The FA-LI class applies margin and padding to the icons, making sure they appear in the correct position next to the list text. The FA-solid class specifies that we want a solid version of the icon. I'll save my work, and I'm going to use the live server this time. So I'm going to go to the right-hand corner, and I'm going to select this icon that says Show Preview. Here are the icons I've added to my Pacific Trails Resort Index page. I think that you will agree that these Font Awesome icons are a very nice improvement to this homepage. You can choose any icons that you feel are appropriate for these list items. I'm going to go ahead and close this, and I'm going to return to the Pacific.css file. And I'm going to continue on with the rest of the recommendations. I'm going to go before the resort and I'm going to type footer. And I'm going to add in my curly braces, and I'm going to add a declaration for font size of 75%. The Emmet abbreviation is FZ 75%, and I'm going to select tab. I'm going to add in my comment, which is FZ 75%, and I'm going to close that comment. I'm going to add the Emmet abbreviation FSI for font style italic, and I'm going to select tab. I'm going to add in that comment, FSI, and close my comment. I'm going to do center text. The Emmet abbreviation is going to be TXA, tab, and I'm going to type center. And that's going to be TXA, and close my comment. We're also going to use the font family Georgia, Times New Roman, or serif. Now, I already have that in my H1, my H2, and my H3. Remember, we don't want to repeat ourselves, so I'm going to add a comma, and I'm going to add footer as well to that. So I'm going to save that, Control S. And then the resort class, I'm going to add a style to that, and I'm going to display that in bold text. I'm going to type in the Emmet abbreviation, FWB, tab, and I'm going to make a comment, FWB. I'm going to close that comment. I accidentally deleted my address selector from the style sheet. Make sure the address selector appears above the footer element in your CSS. Additionally, ensure that the Resort class is the last style in the style sheet. It's important to keep all HTML element selectors above any class or ID selectors in your CSS file to maintain proper styling order. I'm going to return to my index page. I'll scroll down to the footer element, and I'm going to remove the small and I tag. Make sure to remove both the opening and closing tags. I'll now scroll up to the nav section. After the closing nav tag and before the opening main tag, I'll press the Enter key to create space. Then I'll add an image tag by typing IMG and pressing Tab to autocomplete it. I'll type in images and select Enter. And then I'll select the coast JPEG and I'll select Enter. I'll add an alt attribute with the description California North Coast with view of the Pacific Ocean. After the closing quotation mark for the alt tag, I'll make sure to add space, then I'll type in the width attribute. You must remember to add a space between the attributes, so the alt and the width attributes. I'll save my file, Control S, and I'll check the image in the browser. This time I'm going to go open with Live Server, and my file looks great. I'm going to go back to my editor, and I'm going to open up the yurts file. And I'm going to scroll down to the footer, and I'm going to remove the I tag and the small tag. I'm going to scroll up to closing nav element, and I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to type img tab. I'm going to type images, and this one is going to be the yurt JPEG. And my alt attribute is going to say yurt along the Pacific Ocean. After the quotation mark, I'm going to put a space, and I'm going to add in width, hit enter, and I'm just going to hit tab and make sure that it says 100%. I'm going to save my file, Control S. I'm going to go out to my browser, and I'm going to select the yurts link, and it is working. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down, and I'm going to right click in any blank space, and I'm going to say inspect. And I just want to make sure that my footer styles are working. And notice that there's no small or I tag in here, but here's the font size. And if I uncheck this, you can see that that style is working. And this is the italic style. That is working. And then text align center is working. This is one way to see if your styles are working. In the Firefox Inspector, you can also go to Style Editor and select the Pacific.css file. From here, you can choose any style, and you can comment out any of the styles to test if they're being applied. I'm going to go down to my footer, and you can see that Text Align Center was already unchecked because I unchecked that. So I'm just going to refresh. And now if I go to Text Align Center, it's there, but I can also double click on this and do Control / and I can also comment it out this way. And I can refresh this. So this will comment out the line, allowing you to see if the style change takes effect. These changes are temporary and won't be saved. So once you close the file, none of these changes have been saved. I'm going to open up the jigsaww3.org CSS validator, and I'm going to check my Pacific.css file. I'm going to select by file upload. I'm going to browse. I'm going to go to my desktop. I'm going to choose my Pacific CSS file, and I'm going to check. And I want to check for any errors before I proceed. There are no errors, so now I'm going to go to my code editor, and I'm going to create a new page. I'm going to use yurts.html page as my template for my activities page. So I'm going to select File, Save As, and I'm going to name this activities.html. And I'm going to go ahead and select Save. And where it says yurts, I'm going to double click on that word yurts, and I'm going to change this to activities. I'm going to scroll down to where the image is, and I'm just going to delete this whole block of code, and I'm going to type it in again, type img tab, images, / and I'm going to look for the trail JPEG, and I'm going to pause the video, and I'm going to type in my alt tag, and after that closing quotation mark, I'm going to type in a space, width 100%. My H2 text, I'm going to change to activities at Pacific Trails. I'm going to go ahead and delete this entire description list all the way to the closing DL element. I want to make sure that I don't remove that main element. I'm going to configure the following text using H3 tags for the headlines and paragraph tags for the sentences. So I'm going to type H3, and I'm going to type the curly braces. And inside of that, I'm going to type hiking. Outside of that curly brace, I'm going to use the plus, because the paragraph is going to be a sibling of the H3. And inside of those curly braces, I'm going to start typing my content. I'm going to pause the video and finish that typing. I'm going to go outside of that curly brace and I'm going to select the tab key. Great, I have my H3 and my paragraph. I'm going to put a comment up here to remind me what I did. H3, curly braces, outside of that, curly brace, the plus tag, P for paragraph, and then curly braces. And I'm going to highlight this code. I'm going to do Control C because I'm going to use this again, and then Control / for my comment. After this closing paragraph tag, I'm going to add that in. In this H3, between the curly braces, I'm going to type kayaking. And in this paragraph right here, I'm going to type ocean kayaks are available for guest use. Brace, I'm going to select tab. Great. Since I have that in my clipboard, I'm going to go ahead and use it again, that block of code for bird watching. And I'm going to pause the video for this last paragraph and select tab. I'm going to select Control S to save my work. And then I'm going to go out to my browser, and that looks great. So make sure that you check your links and that you're able to traverse back and forth between these 3 pages, home, yurts, and activities. I have completed 3 web pages for the Pacific Trails Resort website, adding visual elements and typography to create a more appealing web page design.